Hi, I'm Brian Forbes, and this is my Module 11 Gifts to Students and Staff presentation for EDL 854 Educational Finance. First thing we're going to talk about comes straight from the textbook. It has to do with gifts for students, and there's a couple of different reasons why somebody would give gifts to students, and the first one would be as an incentive to take part in a fundraiser. That would be when students are in a fundraiser, they're raising funds for a certain cause or for a certain purpose. But in order to get them to do that fundraiser, sometimes you give them certain incentives like gifts or rewards if they raise certain amounts of money. Now, it's really important to remember that only students who participate in the fundraising activity should be recipients of those gifts or rewards for the fundraiser. So it's not just to be given out to anyone. It's only people who do participate. The other thing to consider would be, is the prize or reward age appropriate? That means, am I trying to give, some kind of advanced electronic device to a kindergarten kid? No, that doesn't really match up. It doesn't make sense. But at the same time, do finger puppets and lollipops really appeal to, a high school band member raising funds? Again, probably not. So it's really important to think about something like that as well. The other thing when you are buying gifts or rewards for these fundraisers is to think about how much money it's going to cost for those prizes or rewards. You have to remember that most of the time it's appropriate that the funds for these rewards, for these fundraising incentives, are coming from the profits that you would have made from the sales in the fundraiser. So that means that, if you are raising $100 or $1,000 or $5,000, $10,000, whatever, that any of the kids who participated, that number goes up depending on the money you've raised. And the more money they raise, the more rewards that they could possibly get, or the better rewards there are. So you want to be really conscious about how much those rewards are going to cost, because that's going to be deducted from the amount that you were raising in the first place. So you want it to be appropriate to the event and the age, but also remember that you don't want to take too much away from your profit. And I kind of touched on it already, but you need to make sure that you are purchasing those rewards from the funds that you are raising with the fundraiser. Unless the fundraiser is being performed by only a specific group like student council, if there's money already in the student council fund, then you can purchase it from that fund, because the fundraiser is only being done by the student council members. Now, if it was being performed by the whole student body, then you could not purchase it from the student or the student council fund or any other kind of fund, unless it was the general fund. Another thing to remember is that rewards for certain groups cannot exclude other students, whether they did or did not participate. So what we mean by that is you can't say, well, here's a winner, the reward incentive is that if you participated, we're going to give rewards to just one teacher's class, but not any other teacher's class, whether that's, like a cupcake party or free pencils or, homework passes or something. It doesn't matter if it's monetary value or not. It just cannot exclude other students that especially the ones that participated. Now, in addition to fundraising incentives, there are also special achievements for reasons of why students would receive a reward or a prize or something of that nature. Now, some of the things that you want to remember, again, just like from the fundraising incentives, is number one, is it age appropriate? Number two, is it minimal in value? Especially in this case, we didn't raise funds through a fundraiser. So not only are we pulling money from money that we would have raised, but in this case, we're pulling money from limited funds that are typically meant to go towards other things as well, especially like out of the general fund. So what are some of the things that you can purchase? You can purchase ribbons or medals or certificates, things that, again, don't cost very much money, things that are given out for like attendance or good grades or other achievements. One of the things that are pretty common would be through athletics as well. Those are like medals and plaques and trophies. But you've got to remember that in that case, unlike the other things that would come out of the general fund, you could actually pull money from the athletic fund because it's being used for a specific athletic purpose. Not to that it's excluding anybody else, because it's still the athletes who achieved whatever recognition that you're going to be giving them. Okay, moving away from students, let's talk a little bit about staff members. One of the most common things of reasons why staff members are given items are for special occasions. That could be for their birthdays, getting married, having their first child. It could even be for bereavement type reasons. Maybe there was a death in the family, something around that nature. But you have to remember that in this case, we cannot have one individual, especially the principal or vice principal, someone in an administrative role, deciding who gets what kind of a gift and when they get that gift, because for lots of ethical reasons, like, improprieties or, shows of favoritism and other things like that, misuse of funds. But you've got to have a committee in place of that individual. So for my school district at USD 232 in DeSoto, we have social committees, is what they call them, where those funds are raised by staff members. They pay their social committee dues, and then the social committee, takes those dues, and throughout the year, like I said, on birthdays, everybody gets a small little gift. Sometimes it's a small gift card, or, signed cards, or a cookie cake or something like that. But especially on the rare or special occasions where people need more gifts, whether it's for, a new child, a baby shower type gift, or, we've sent flowers or meals to people who have lost loved ones. So those things are usually paid for in that manner. The other thing we try and consider is with these committees, you need to make sure that any gift that's being given, no matter what the purpose is, whether it's for a good thing or an unfortunate event, that they're reasonably priced. Which means, there's a limit, there's a cap that's been discussed by that committee in advance, at least once a year, that outlines what are the types of things we're going to buy gifts for, and then how much money are we willing to spend on each of those things. Especially those things have to be revisited every year, because you're never sure exactly how much in social committee dues that you might be raising. So it's really important to go back and revisit those standards. Now, besides special occasions, staff can also receive gifts themselves from fundraiser instead of just like students would. So if you can get staff members to participate in the fundraiser, for instance, one of the pictures I have here on my slideshow is, a teacher in a dunk tank. Maybe they're raising funds at like a school fair or something, and students are buying, tickets to throw baseballs at the dunk tank, and the teacher that's in the dunk tank is technically participating. Even though they're not necessarily spending money or raising the funds themselves, they're still doing something that's associated with the fundraiser. So in that sense, they might be given, a t-shirt that commemorates that particular fundraiser for that year, or, some other small token of gratitude for their participation. But it's really important, similar to how we've discussed with student gifts, that they're nominal in price, meaning, very minimal, basic, price. Staff gifts are never to exceed 5% of whatever the profit is going to be. Now, I was a little unclear in the textbook as far as whether or not that's 5% per individual or 5% total for all gifts. I'm kind of leaning towards 5% for all gifts, because if you say 5% for this person and that person, you might have multiple teachers, that participate, and that could get fairly expensive. So, use your kind of judgment on that basis, especially when it comes to the number of staff who did participate. Okay, the last thing that we would give gifts to staff for is when we do all staff gifts, and that has to do with Teacher Appreciation Week. Whether it's like the specific week of, sometimes it's a back to school event, or even at the end of the school year, a lot of times there's little assemblies that teachers and staff have without students, once the students are out of the building, to talk about things that certain teachers have accomplished, to give pats on the back and those types of things. So it could range from certificates. We have like little special bobbleheads sometimes that are given out. Like this year, for instance, our school theme was, the Oscars. So we had, an Oscar presentation to different teachers who achieve certain things, coaches, sponsors, stuff like that. Now, those things don't cost a lot of money. So again, it's not that big a deal as long as it's small amounts of money. The other thing to remember is that unlike the social committee, which can give out gift cards, cash or cash equivalent type items, that any gift coming from the building, especially the administrators, cannot be cash or cash equivalent items like gift cards, gift certificates, those types of things. Anything that is equivalent to money must be reported on a staff member's W-2 as income. So it's very, very important to remember that that is the process. So we don't want to break any rules or any laws when it comes to what's being reported and what's not being reported, especially as income for staff. So you can't think, well, the teachers didn't get a raise this year, I'll just give them all some extra gift cards throughout the year during teacher appreciation or whatever. That's not how it works. So it's really important to remember that. Okay. There are certain instances where there are special efforts that are made on behalf of the student body or the staff or the whole school district even when it comes to giving things away, whether it's to staff or students. What we mean by those special efforts or special circumstances has to do with if someone became seriously ill or injured, or if there was a catastrophic event in their lives, their house burned down, a tornado blew their house away, or they lost their mode of transportation through, like I said, a car crash or something of that nature. A lot of times people will raise funds that are being donated specifically to be given to that person. Now, if it is school sponsored, meaning that staff or administrators are running that not necessarily a fundraiser, but that donation activity through the building during school hours, those things, again, it's being considered as cash or cash equivalent items, which must be reported again on that person's W-2. So they have to pay taxes on it. So in order to avoid that, you might want to talk with parents or the PTA or other organizations that could put that drive together outside of school hours, that is not necessarily being ran in any way by school personnel to avoid some of those issues. But if it is given from school personnel to another school personnel, it is going to be considered and tracked as income. And then just kind of the last thing to wrap it up would be, if you're ever in doubt of what is a good practice or what is against school practice or what is against the law to do, or how do I go about setting up the fundraiser or expending money, gifts, those types of things, always make sure that you check with your district handbook and the policies associated with fundraisers, the giving of gifts, the receiving of cash and things like that. And then also, you can always check your State Department of Education typically has something on their website as well that'll help guide you through it. So, okay, I hope you guys learned something about the giving of gifts.